Namaste and welcome, beloveds. To the circle of light, infinite being. Just realize, we have nothing to do other than to bask as infinite being. Even when we feel like we're doing, there's nothing happening. So much happiness. And what an opportunity this is to start with the infinite power of being, the light, the infinite power of the light that we are, to keep looking. And to keep looking. And it seems like, well, why are we still looking? If we're infinite light, which we are, and we can see that, yet the desire for consciousness, to play in consciousness, is a very heavy addiction with deep roots. We can see that we're light, yet somehow tensions arise, illnesses, pain. Those are all still an investment in personal identity. Jesus told me directly, pain is personal identity, is an investment in personal identity. And what he's offering and what God has given us is no pain, happiness, infinite happiness and joy. And unless that's a consistent experience 24/7 for any being who accepts the offer that we already are made as the Father made us, then the looking continues to be of value with Jesus. As I said, until he says we're done. But we'll know we're done because we'll be consistent. We are consistent peace all the time. We'll be exactly choiceless awareness, the light itself, before even consciousness arises, unborn awareness. Consciousness is an idea in the mind of the dreamer. Perfect peace is our one goal, the blessing of being. The blessing of being that's already here. The undoing of the idea of a doer. The one who chooses, the undoing of the idea that there's one to choose. In the divine light, we can see there's not a chooser. Desire to misperceive, to create perception and then get lost in perception. Desire to perceive ourselves as an object acted on by a world. An object that asks and continually questions, am I the light? Am I the light? Well, really, who am I? Because if we start asking if we're the light, it's going to bring us directly to see that we are the light in genuine inquiry. Jesus says genuine inquiry with the openness to know, to be shown. So we continue through the beliefs. and letting Jesus reveal. It seems like layers. There's really not a way to describe the undoing. Sometimes a big chunk can fall away at once. Open to. As it's been mentioned beautifully here, the patience, really, to see that we are patience itself. The divine being's not sitting there waiting for another chunk of identity to fall away. Is divine light saying, when's this going to be over? That's helpful to remember. This is why purpose is the only choice there is. To line all the focus within consciousness, the power of consciousness, instead of directing it to focus on things out in the world, to look back first and see what's being denied, the light, and then look with the light, the power of infinite being, at whether those denials have value in truth. Do they exist in truth? So this is the questioning whether or not desires exist. There's always such an assumption that a choice exists. Yet we're beyond choice. True identity is choiceless. Choice is unknown. We were just talking about Jesus, talking about the prompt from Field of Dreams, or really hearing that voice, and how do you hear the voice for God? And it has no reasons whatsoever, just keeps being my lesson. The lesson that appears here. There's no reason whatsoever. If you're told to go out to build the dream field, then you follow that, because it's expression of divinity. That's expression of divinity, to not have a reason. What purpose does the light have for a reason for anything? Does it have a reason? Does it know what a reason is? Does it ask for a reason? Does it give a reason? Infinite light. That's how clueless we really are. Clueless in a happy way, in that there's no reason for being. Like we're justifying the ego's method is to pretend like we don't exist, the light doesn't exist, and then try to prove itself. I'm real, I'm real, I'm real. And then in the light of being, we can see it doesn't. Where is it? Where is that? It's a display within consciousness. It's just a display. And Jesus is taking the right to the root, the desire for experience. And in that, all the power of being is seen. The power to create it, the power to miscreate it, the power to see that it does not exist. Is there any, in the light of divine being, is there any other reality than light, infinite being? Can that be found? In the light of infinite being, Jesus is reminding us, you believe that rejecting yourself, your divine nature, is your salvation. Somewhere in there, if there's still tension, listening to Jesus, any kind of tension, there's some tension, it's rejection of divinity. That's pretty direct. Wow. Does the divine light know what tension is? Does it get involved in tension? Does it have an intention? Can we find within divine being an intention for something? It's devoid of attention, intention, tension. That's our natural state. And we're making that the alien. The light is the alien in the ego's thought system. I will be annihilated by the light. Yes, you will, because you'll see that it doesn't exist. And Ethan sing of, listen to Jesus, what he's saying. Yeah, it just says when these things arise, let them happen and see him as the light. Is the light bothered by it? Screaming, yelling, gnashing of teeth? Does it change the light? We're trying to make the light wrong so we can experience a feeling of wrongness, experience of guilt. None of those are wrong either. None of it's wrong. It's all what is. It's these thoughts believe. You believe that rejecting yourself is your salvation. I am willing to look Jesus, go until he says no. Many times I'm willing to look as he points me to this. Even when I think I'm done, I still look again. You believe that rejecting yourself is your salvation. You desire an experience of rejecting yourself as a means to deny yourself true salvation. Tension is rejecting yourself. I'm looking at that for sure. Jesus. The slightest intention or intention. Some would say that's just what's appearing. It's appearing because you desire it. You believe you're the author of yourself and others. Yeah, this authorship's come up a lot today. Let's see. The desire to author myself, or yes. With authorship is the authority problem. The desire to experience an authority problem. Is there any desire to experience an authority problem? I'm willing to see it in its fullness. Just like feel that energy of that authority. Rejection of divine authority. Is there any desire to reject divine authority? Remaining below level of awareness. Is there any desire to decorate moving figures with concepts and ideas? I'm willing to see that. You can show me any examples within consciousness where I'm addicted to that. This feels good to look at. We looked at this a couple of nights ago to really look deeply again at you are fearful of everything you have received but have refused to accept. The denial of miscreated perception. I want to see that in its fullness. Desire to experience miscreated perception. All perception is miscreation. He's pointing to true perception without a precept or a preceptor perceiving happening. Yet, choiceless awareness is beyond this. Unified perception. Is there any refusal remaining to accept the miscreation of perception, that I have miscreated perception? Through a desire for its experience perception. Jesus, I asked him, is it possible to withdraw all investment in perception? He said, yes. What purpose does this serve the light? How does this serve perception, serve the light? It's pretty radical. Yet it feels natural. The refusal to accept perception as a miscreation generates a feeling of fear. It feels like something's out of control. Till we see that we've miscreated it, that we're in complete control from the standpoint of within consciousness having the power to miscreate perception. It's the path to seeing that we're not subject to it. It's the path to non-objective experience, Jesus is saying. It's like the return way home. The perception itself is a choice, chosen experience. In the divine light, in the light of truth, is perception a chosen experience? In our direct experience. Very funny, Jesus saying it's not exactly something that you talk about at a cocktail party. He said, but it can be the most valuable thing you talk about at a cocktail party. The desire for perception, to perceive something. generated by an idea that something is perceivable. It's an idea, it's a concept of an object that can be perceived. Keep saying, the refusal to accept the miscreation of perception generates a feeling of fear, experience of fear. Whereas acceptance of the denial is the reversal. It points back to it never happened. That's time going backwards. It's showing me like a bike pedaling forward through projection and the bike pedaling backwards through desire. Time's actually going backwards. And all the while being simultaneous. It's the undoing of perception, the perceptive time. Just asked him, is all that helpful? He said yes. I don't know what for. Okay. This is such a trick, this little spiral thing. It feels so good to spend more time with him on this. You believe that because you have refused to accept it, perception, you have lost control over perception. That is so key. That's the done to me syndrome. That's why he said again, that's why the denial is unwinding from loss of control. That's acceptance of it's acceptance of divine power. The power that moves all things. You desire an experience where you create perception and refuse to accept it so that you can have an experience of losing control over what you perceive and be acted on by a world. Is there any desire for that left? To hide from, that's how we're hiding from the world. Experience of losing control over perception, that perception is just happening to you while you're desiring it the whole time. I'm willing to look at the desire for perception and see that it's completely within my control as a divine being. This is really handy having Jesus do the drill down. I've never looked at these that closely for a reason. They're really like, oh. You see why. He's coming back around to the doer. You believe you need to do something to feel whole or complete. He's talking about doer and choice. Doing is choosing. The doer is the idea of choice. The doing is salvation. The idea of the doer and choice, the belief that choice is salvation. Yeah. Let's talked about that before. The idea that choice is salvation. Jesus, is there any desire to attempt to experience choice as salvation? It's funny, yeah, it's just the false salvation, the impossible form of salvation where nothing's ever saved. It's like a trick to try to save from death when dying, when experiencing death. I'm dying, but I'm really saving myself as I slowly die here. That's how convoluted I'm really saving myself. It's so convoluted. That felt natural before. I guess didn't just question it. It just feels really unnatural now. Anything but the Holy Spirit's starting to feel unnatural. Jesus said, my point exactly. Whatever that voice is arising in consciousness. You believe you're, okay. Here's another one I feel like I need to, let's see. He's going, yes, look at this one. Okay, this is good. You believe if you allow no change to enter into your ego, you will find peace. The control is the path to peace. That's the salvation again in the ego's form of it. I can feel that in my arm. Let's see. You desire an experience of attempting to stop change entering. That's so convoluted because the ego is change itself. You desire an experience of attempting to stop change entering the ego to find peace without actually ever finding peace, while actually desiring not to find any peace. Not wanting peace at all. That the path to peace is keeping your ego exactly the way it is. Is there any energy around that? I want to see it. It's like that builds the fortress of denial. That's that defensiveness, defending any change. This one I'll look at again. I can feel I need it. I see, deeper look. Okay. You believe that projecting the ego's thought system is valuable. You desire an experience of projecting the ego's thought system. Is there any desire to project? I want to see through that. I want to just feel that the itch to project. You desire an experience of projecting the ego's thought system and feeling it valuable. More valuable than divine being. Is there any desire around that left in the subconscious mind below my level of awareness? Yeah, he's saying the tiniest twitch is a projection. An attempt to put something outside of myself. It's melting away all the false identity just by looking. Looking with the power of divine being together. That's what this feels like, melting. And a glass of warm water, like Muji would say, melts like. I love that because it really honors how powerful we are for this to be gentle by looking directly as light, as light. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.